Okay, it's 7 o'clock, and we'll call this meeting to order, and we do have a quorum. And I'd like to welcome the one guest that's here. Hi, Joe. Glad you can make it. And you want to make a public comment or anything? Okay, we're good there, no public comments. Okay, we'll start with item 5, campus reports and announcements. Sorry. How did I do that? When
Trying to get through.
I rolled down too far. Okay, if everybody stand, Greg, please, in the invocation.
Lord, we thank you for this time. We thank you for watching after this country. We pray that things will continue to improve and that you will bless us again soon with more prosperity and say community closeness. We thank you for the opportunity to do this business and that you will guide us, and we hope that it will be pleasing to you, and watch after each and every one of us as we go our ways after the meeting. We thank you in our Lord Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
And Katie, you will lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Too many comments.
to be confident.
I went right through it, just wanted to.
I heard it.
Okay, now we can welcome guests. Again, hi, Joe. All right, let's move to item 5, campus reports and announcement of campus teacher and staff member of the year.
I want to recognize, and this is obviously a very odd scenario because with COVID and so few people here, our teachers and all of our staff work very, very hard all year long. And so it's nice to be able to vet them appropriately. So I'm going to announce their names tonight. We do have them on our website. We have some other things planned for them as well. So without further ado, let me go through these if I could. At Venus Primary School, staff member of the year this year was Assistant Principal Christy Thorman. Outstanding job. Venus Primary School teacher of the year is Joelle Perez. Outstanding. Venus Elementary School staff member of the year, Clayton Harris. Clayton does the ISS over there and just has a heart for kids like none other. Venus Elementary School teacher of the year, Cassie Hanlon. They're great teachers, and again, tremendous job. Venus Middle School staff of the year, Brittany Jackson. Brittany's done a super job in her role. Venus Middle School teacher of the year is Kimberly Hill. Our ELA teachers, just outstanding. Venus High School staff member of the year, Myrna Hernandez, bilingual ESL aide, does a super job. Venus High School teacher of the year is Lacey Flynn. So we're very proud of all of these staff persons and teachers of the year. Once again, we will vet them appropriately, but did want to announce their names tonight.
Okay. We'll move to item 6, consent agenda, which consists of 6A, approval of previous month's board minutes, 6B, approval of contract with ESC 11 for 2020-2021 school year, 6C, approval of contract for services with Johnson County Elections Office for November 2020 general election, 6D, approval of memorandum of understanding for juvenile justice alternative education program, and 6C, approval of the letter of engagement with auditing firm Hankins, East of Deaton, and why won't they come down? My computer is not working right.
I'll finish that if you'd like me to.
Sure, go ahead. I'm trying to get this to roll.
Hankins East Deaton, Taunton, and C for school year 2021, and for financial statements audit.
Okay, anybody have any questions or comments about those, or would like to go over them in more detail?
I just wanted to clarify one thing. I read over the JJ, and I didn't notice any major differences. I just wanted to confirm that there weren't any major changes
That's
this year.
correct.
Okay.
What's the total cost of this election cost us? I was looking at figures that were pretty high.
Attachment C,
Hmm?
attachment C,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Hopper, should
I was looking at that, they looked,
hang on, let me get my book.
16,000, 405?
is that normally, is that reasonable, is that what we normally pay?
Michelle, do you recall what that is right off? The total costs for the election services.
I do not, it is part of that documentation, but maybe half of it at least, it may be just a third.
It is
The city gets
approximately,
involved.
I'm sorry. It's approximately the same cost had we gone and done it with the city, when we signed that city paperwork. So there are some extra expenses for tabulation and that sort of thing. The total of the entire contract is 16,405, but we split that
Right.
with the other entities that are involved.
So that's a three-way split, at least on most of that.
Yes, sir.
So elections are expensive.
That pays for all of the clerks and
I was
the
just wondering if
judges
it's
and the
more
voting
expensive
machines.
holding it in November with the presidential election, the other elections.
Well, because we're contracting with the county as well, yes. I think that is.
Okay.
Make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by Greg,
I'll second.
second by Chad. All in favor? All in favor, motion passes. Okay, item number 7, discussion concerning potential adjustment of school calendar.
You should all have a packet at your seat that looks like this. Starts off with that TEA slide show. I've got one extra if anybody in the room needs one. Greg, you've got this. I'm assuming.
Probably. Get that one, found it yet?
Here, let's do it.
You can go ahead, I'll find it.
Okay. So what I wanted you to see is, now you've already seen that slideshow, and I just put that in there for reference. This is the commissioner's information that he put out about, and basically what he's trying to do is get everybody to take a look at their calendars and to decide what you want to do as far as planning for potential second or third wave of COVID. So what you'll see about midway through this, in fact, on page 5, you can see the first, it says sampled intersessional calendar. Well, what this is basically, and again, you guys saw this last week, but just to tell you that what they're saying is if you'll take some spaces where you typically have a vacation or a holiday, simply add to that, and then if we do have to have a shutdown, then you've already taken those days, and then you'll simply extend your calendar into the summer. And if we didn't have a shutdown, then we could do some remediation. The suggestion was that we do remediation during those times. So, in other words, if you say take, instead of 2 weeks off for Christmas, you take 4 weeks, and that's what the example shows here. So you take 4 weeks off for Christmas, and then what you'll do is, for 2 of those weeks, let them go to Christmas break, and the other 2 weeks bring some students back for remediation. Well, not all students would come back for remediation, just those needing it. Well, the issue with us in Venus is that if we're going to remediate anybody, we're going to have to run buses. we're gonna have to transport kids. And so that's an issue for us. The other question is, as you're doing this remediation, it's not mandatory. So what sort of participation are you gonna have? Mom and dad decide, goodness, 4 weeks, we can go to West Virginia, we can go to California or Mexico or wherever. We don't have to come back for a long time. So the other issue with that too is the parents are used to having those 2 weeks off. Give them 4 weeks and they're going back to work. They're not taking a month off of work. So now you have a situation where parents have to have child care. So those are all issues. So as we looked at this concept, and by the way, that also extends your school year well into taking up pretty much most of the month of June. So I will tell you, as we talked through this quite a bit, and we hashed and rehashed and looked at this in a lot of ways, one of the things I wanted our staff to know too is that this issue is out there big time on everybody's radar. So I wanted them to understand that we are looking into this. I will tell you that after doing this for some time, I've pretty much come full circle on this. If you'll look at the back page of this packet, here are a list of bullet points that I want to talk about. This is a discussion item for tonight. We're not here to make a decision. In fact, I'm not even sure that there's a decision to make, even if it were. So as a discussion item, there's certain things I believe we have to do. Our board needs to have consensus and talk about this very openly and transparently. We also need to talk with our staff about this very openly and transparently. We also need to talk with our community about this in the same way. So I want to go over a few of these bullet points in consideration that we've sort of come through in all of this. Obviously, it's a challenge trying to anticipate a window for closure. Well, when's that going to happen? October, November, December? Obviously we can't guess that. We're saying, hey, I bet you we're going to close. We may not. Who knows? An intercession in the fall will create the need to end the semester after Christmas, creating some dual credit concerns. So now you have a situation where we, because of the intercession, we're going to have to either start this thing in July and possibly even extend well into January. So those are going to be issues that are created. Well, when we start talking about starting school in July, even if it's just staff development, we're getting into some people's previous plans. We already start pretty early. We originally had planned to start August 13th. That's pretty early because we are a district of innovation. We had that prerogative to do that. So to bring it earlier than that creates issues, not just with teachers, but also with some of our parents. Intercessions during the year still mean that parents must arrange for childcare during those times. So that's a point that I've already made. Many students will not be able to get to school for practices, etc. during intercession unless we transport them. So in other words, if kids are in basketball practice or whatever, we decide we're going to take this long intercession. Well, now we still have our seasons going on, basketball, or whatever it is, and so those students are still going to have to come. You can't take off a month of everything. And because not everybody is going to have an intercession calendar, and if they do, doesn't mean all their intercessions are going to be the same. Calendars can potentially be all over the place. So our seasons will go on, whether we're in school or not. So that means students will still be coming to practice. So that's another issue. One of the things that we wanted to note as well, as I put down here, added staff, parent, and student anxiety due to modified calendar. We're in a time of high uncertainty right now, very, very high uncertainty. If there's something that we can do to create more certainty or more of a foundation, we need to try to do that. So this is a situation that I think if we looked at this intercession calendar, which no one right now in this district has, is familiar with, and to try to talk through that concept creates, again, another piece of anxiety. Testing dates have not changed, and nor will they change according to TEA. So in other words, the test dates are still there, just as they were. So intercession means fewer instructional days prior to state testing and many more afterwards. So in other words, if we decide to take, well, let's take another week in November, 2 more weeks in January, maybe 2 weeks in March. Well, that's 5 weeks that we're not going to be instructing students. We ordinarily would be instructing students unless there's some sort of a shutdown. But we've predetermined we're not coming to school on those days. And yet our state assessment date hasn't changed. So we pulled out 5 weeks of instruction prior to those testing dates. Now, we've talked quite a bit about, we don't revolve our calendar around state testing, and state testing certainly doesn't define us. But certainly we want an accurate representation of what our kids learn. When you pull out all those instructional days and you put them on the backside of that, that's not even going to be an accurate assessment on what our students know. So those are just some of the points as we look at this to take into consideration. I think from this point, we talk with staff and we also talk with community. One of the things that we've talked about already is, even prior to all of this questioning, was that we bring our students in for a 10-day Bulldog camp, the 20th through the 31st of July. Instruction will be focused on literacy and math as sort of a jump start into the new school year. So I think that's a very good idea to plug that in. I've talked with other school districts that are actually thinking about the same thing. Should we have to limit the number of participants in Bulldog Camp, and we might have to, originally we talked about all of our students being available to all of our students. But should we have to limit the number of participants, we could possibly limit it to those who have the highest academic need. So it truly is for those students who come in early. It would certainly be optional. So not going to be mandatory, but it would be for 10 days prior. So at this point, what I'm saying for the point of discussion is, as we've come full circle in this issue, I'm not sure that it's in our best interest necessarily to deviate any significant amount, if any at all, from our original calendar. So I would throw that open for discussion.
I agree. I say don't change it. We need to move on.
It's a lot. I think it's a lot for parents, teachers, make that big adjustment.
Got my vote. It's the best way to go. Parents can get back to a stable life. They haven't had for a while, so.
Well, what we would do is from here, because I feel like we need to address this with our community programs. And I can do this with a presentation, we can video, and then let parents have questions, comments, whatever they need to. But one of the things we do have to understand, though, should there be a shutdown mid-year. So if you'll take a look at the inside page of that packet, inside that last page, I should say, that's our current calendar that we've already adopted for next year. So our current calendar shows us a May 28th graduation date. Now, should we have to shut down for whatever reason, those days would have to be added on there in June. Okay. Now, we do have days built in. We've got a good number of days built in that we can plug in there. So if we take off, if we have to shut down for 20 days, we can count for half of those. So it was 20, will become 10. So provided we don't have any ice storms and those kinds of things also. Or we can take another route, and I don't know that we'd want to do this, but we can take another route and say if we don't want to go that far into the summer, let's lengthen our days a little bit during the school year. Because it's all about not just days, but minutes. So 75,600 minutes, and that's how we get to the number of days that we have to spare. So,
there's all kinds of options with basically staying with this calendar, which would still probably work. I'm in agreement with everybody that's spoken so far that this time, stability starts coming back, and the school is one of the best places to do that. I mean, we're starting on the 12th, right, of August?
13th.
13th.
Yes, sir.
13th. Well, I mean, as long as it's still in August, you might even be able to buy a week there. Rather than starting in July, you might be able to just start in August and then either, go in that week that we didn't use somewhere else's break, or just, use that as an additional break on top of some breaks we already have.
Yes, sir. What you have illustrated here in this calendar is those 3rd, 4th, and 5th of August. Those are new staff orientation days. So new staff would come in at that time. The blue days, the next 3 days are all staff development. Excuse me. And then the 12th is, that's a teacher work day, so for classrooms.
And, I mean, to me, even if we had to take some days early in the fall or early winter, at least we have time to prepare the parents that, hey, it looks like because of this, taking 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it might be, we're gonna have to add it on the back end. How many parents could accept? They understand, I know most of them probably won't like having to go an extra week or 2 into June, but, you know.
Well, if we do it,
it's-
almost everybody else will.
Everybody else is gonna be doing it too, you know?
Right.
So-
You know, pandemics are pandemics.
Right.
No, I think that's exactly correct. Now, if I were, our caution to parents would be, it's best not to schedule your vacation those first 3 weeks of June. And so I'm quite serious about that. I mean, sometimes people come in and, hey, we've got this big, whatever it is, vacation that we really can't get a refund. Those vacations need to be later in the summer. And that's something they'll need to know. So when we say May the 28th, they need to know that, you know, there's some wiggle room there. So,
Well, I think after going through all this year, that it will be on the back of their minds going into the next year, that, you know, anything's possible after what we just did this year, so.
Well, how many days did we miss? What, the middle of March, all the way through the end of school?
oh, goodness,
So that's what, 6 weeks, 8 weeks?
that is 12 weeks,
Or, yeah,
at least. Yeah.
10 maybe, yeah. Well, if they do that again, who just say they won't do another 10 weeks at a time? I mean, I don't know, it's
I
just,
just-
it's crazy.
My hang up is if we change it, and we add in all these extra days, and we go all the way to June, and then, you know, I mean, to me, once we do that, we're never gonna go back the other way. It's gonna be harder to go back
Mhm.
to what we have, and it's gonna be, end up being almost like year-round school.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
And we have to know that that's really, my opinion, I think that was a part of the purpose of looking at the intercession piece, was to consider what they call a balanced schedule.
Right.
Or a balanced calendar. Basically, it's year-round school where you take your summer break and you chop it up and move it around. And from a purely academic standpoint, it's not a bad idea at all. It really isn't. The reason it could become a bad idea is that our community, our parents, have to get adjusted to that. I mean, there has to be a plan for childcare. There has to be our constituents understand that, you know, I'm going to send my child to this camp, or we're going to, you get your schedule worked out. So if we ever make a move towards something like that balanced calendar or a year-round schedule, that's something that takes a year, 2 years, sometimes 3 years in the planning stages. Hey, 2 years from now, you know, this is what we would do, this is why we would do it, if that's what we choose to do. And when I say choose to do, that's something that we would do with our community on board. With our community, their heads are all nodding and saying, you know what, that's gonna be the best thing for our kids. And if we ever come to that conclusion, once again, that's still 2 or 3 years down the road before implementation. We certainly don't come in here to do that.
no, you're right. I mean, it's something we have to prepare. I mean, just can't just rush into it. That's a major decision. And I totally agree. That's something we have to kind of work towards.
So at this point, you know, this is sort of the resolve that as I look at this, and I just can't make really good sense of the intercession right now for this school, this community at this time. However, we'll take that back, speak to our staff, and also we need to get that information to our parents and take it from there.
Well, I can say this, if Six Flags ever comes back around, they're gonna have a heck of a time coming up with employment during summer, because everybody's gonna be in school, nearly the whole staff.
We won't have to spend very long in lines, you know, will we? So.
Okay. Move to item 8, unless anyone's got any questions or comments. Consider approval of modular buildings purchase.
All right, so what we did was, I know we've given a lot of information prior to this about, you know, cost of these buildings, and we know what that is. Depending on what we would want to do with portable buildings, there have been several things that we've discussed. We feel like at the high school, we need at least 4 classrooms probably. You know, the debate of, you know, do we put restrooms there or not? How long-term are these buildings? There's several different factors that come into play here. And some of those factors include, you know, number one, how many students do we have? How many students are we going to have? That's an unknown, quite honestly. This is a whole different, you know, we started this conversation before COVID shutdown ever happened. And so I'm looking at, here's J&J on the verge of 3 developments that they're about to kick off. Of course, Patriot Estates keeps going. And so that's when we started this conversation, enter COVID. Well, now since then, we've got a developer that I'm not sure that they haven't, you know, come to a halt. Even if they did start building today, none of those things are going to be ready to move in for another year and a half. So it's not going to affect us in the fall. We could well have some parents that don't want to, you know, elect to send their students back to a building full of other students. You know, they may elect to serve them at home. So we may have some online learning taking place. So the question is, we really don't have those answers. The other piece of this that Michelle and I have discussed too is, of course, school funding. And where are we going to go with that? That's a huge piece. You know, can we do this? Yes. But we always ask along with that, can we do it as should we do it? What we can do now, what we gained from this is we do have some vendors that we really like as potential. We do know that should we, depending on backlog and those kinds of things, on workload, we can have, from the time we put in an order with some of these vendors, we can have these things up and running in 4 to 6 weeks. One of them in particular can once they start building on, can make a portable building in 1 week. So, and they're not very far away, they can move in and have these set. All that being said, I think probably at this point, I would recommend that instead of going forward and saying, let's get these buildings and set them here, with the idea that we may have empty classrooms yet in a high school building, that we hold off, just kind of table this for now and see what the fall brings. Should we, as we get into the fall, if it looks like, gosh, we better get these things here, we better get them now, that's something we can do. That's something we can do. We've talked about several different things about the portables. Do we put them on the west side? Do we put them on the east side? Do we put them in those restrooms? So some of the things that are going to impact that is how many students are coming into our building. So that's an answer that we don't have between now and the time we are actually able to go out for a bond. Because, you know, when something like this pandemic hits, you know, everything we've been talking about, this could just knock it 2 years into the future as far as potential bond or whatever the date range may be. So this is going to impact the economy, it's going to impact the building, it's going to impact the moving, it's going to impact all of this. So that's something that we certainly have, you know, we've got the ability to sit back and take a look at this and see what we want to do for our district. We've got some great resources here, again, and done a lot of good looking into this. So anyway, I would recommend at this point, and certainly open up for discussion, that we simply put this on hold for now and take it up in the fall. We'll monitor, we'll look at registration, we'll look at enrollment, and see where we are with that. questions, comments, or concerns?
Question, and I guess my mind's behind, but we'll fit this in the need of classrooms. Because we're talking about students that may just choose not to come, and we have to do some online teaching or something.
Right.
So is that going to be an option? And then the next question would be, and we'll put it in relation to space. What about the employees that still have chronic health issues that decide they don't want to be at school? Do they quit? Do they work? Do we keep paying them not to come? I mean, and I know that should have been talked about in the last subject, but since we're still talking about classrooms, we're talking about filling those classrooms with teachers, so we have to know how many teachers we're actually gonna have to know how many classroom spaces we need.
Well, you open up a very pointed, but then at the same time, very, very complicated question. I will tell you that the decisions being made up to this point are that you really can't compel someone to come to work as far as if they're legitimate physical concerns. Now, don't take that as the definitive legal answer to what you just asked. But we were basically getting the instruction right now that we might have to facilitate some online teaching. In other words, I'm fully capable and willing to teach from home, but I have a health condition that if I come up there, I mean, I literally may be endangering my life. Or maybe there's somebody in my home that is in that situation. I go to school in a mix. So there are those concerns that right now are being discussed nearly 24/7. So we have to be ready for a lot of that. I will tell you that one of the things being discussed in detail as well is just as we mentioned is again, how are we going to meet the needs of those who are staying at home for online learning? Because TEA has already said that they're going to factor that into our ADA. So in other words, we're not going to take a ding. They're still enrolled in our district. They're taking classes at home, but we're still going to receive ADA funding for them, which means we've got to teach those kids. How are we going to do that? So fortunately, we've got our hotspots. We've got hotspots more than enough for everybody in our district. So the online piece shouldn't be an issue. We've got Chromebooks enough for every grade 2 through 12 at this point. And also, we're looking into devices. In fact, I was contacted today by somebody who said, I'd really be interested in helping fund devices for the primary school. So all of that being said, I don't have a complete answer for what you just said because of all the specific details that could entail. Attorneys are working on that right and left. But if we've got somebody who has the ability, the will, and can facilitate online teaching, and they have a physical issue or some type of an issue that's going to necessitate them doing so, then I think it's incumbent upon us to try to make that work for them. Any other questions?
Okay, well, if there's no objection.
I got, sorry, I'm
sorry.
thinking, no, you're okay, I'm just quiet. I was thinking about in the proposal for the modular buildings, didn't we discuss, some improvements to the existing building that currently houses DAP and the bathrooms out there? Was that part of that, or am I just imagining it? Or am I thinking of something different?
I don't recall that discussion, to be honest with you.
We threw around a couple things.
We threw around a
That,
lot.
remodeling the library and different things, yeah, so it was, that was probably in there.
Right, there was a
So as a thought then, are there any immediate needs for the DAP building that we can deal with? I mean, especially if we're not gonna hack off a nice chunk of change for new buildings. Is there anything we can do with our existing building
the DAP building specifically, we can, before we get into that, I can tell you that there's the other things on our big ticket items that Shell and I are talking about also is roofing, roofs, plural. So we've got to start chipping away at our roofs. And when I say that, I'm talking about making sure that we take a roof a year or every other year, whatever we do, whether it's a complete re-roof or if it's just a good, good repair job. But we need to maintain those. Those roofs are going to be the number one thing that maintains the life of those buildings. Mr. Moore, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Can you address the needs of the DAEP physical building survey?
As far as just the layout or the
Restroom,
upgrades or what?
what's the maintenance of the building like, and what needs might we have?
Well, I mean, ultimately, that building itself was probably initially designed to be a two-room classroom, but because of the modifications that have taken place and the inclusion of two restroom facilities and an office space, it's in good shape for what it is, but currently in some need of leveling and some underpinning and just some minor repairs to get it up to ship shape 100%.
Leveling and underpinning.
Sir?
You said leveling and underpinning?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And that was something that had been some part of the conversation, should we have put portables out there, that maybe we could include some leveling and underpinning and restabilization of that building.
I see. So that's where that.
Okay, not going crazy.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Not for now.
Anybody have any more questions or comments? All right, if there's no objection, we will table that for now and take it up at a later date. Okay, item 9, consider approval of general fund budget amendments. 9A is consider approval of general fund budget amendment for instructional resources and media services. Michelle, can you say anything about that, or you?
This is a $1,900 budget amendment for some additional reading materials reading materials. So, and 9B is we won't need to do that because that's for portables.
I started saying, wouldn't it?
Yes, sir. So it would only be 9A that we're talking about. 9B would be deleted.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on 9A?
Make that motion.
We have a motion by Deborah,
I'll second.
second by Katie. All in favor? All in favor, none opposed, motion passes. All right. What do we need to go into executive session?
Personnel.
No. Just want to make sure we're at all this.
Personnel and discipline.
Okay. Okay, we're going into executive session for 551-072, 551-074, 551-076, and that's it.
Yeah, we gotta do 12.
Oh, I'm sorry,
That's all right.
I'm getting really ready for,
He's
to
trying
go
to get
on.
out of here,
Need some more coffee.
He's on that, no cap.
No, I'm on a decaf diet.
Oh, well,
Oh,
that
That's
explains
the
it.
problem.
that can be a problem.
All right, yes, I'm telling you. Okay, let's see,
Ratify three of those.
hang on a minute, let me
12.
get back to where I am, or where I was. I've lost my place. Okay, item 12, consider approval of personnel as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the personnel as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Chad, a second by Greg, all in favor? All in favor, none opposed, motion passes. Okay, consider ratification of personnel as needed.
I'll make the motion that we ratify the personnel as presented.
Okay,
Second.
I have a motion by Katie, a second by Linda, all in favor? All in favor, none opposed, motion carries. Okay, now we'll move to reports. Superintendent's reports first.
Well, attendance and enrollment. We've been affected somewhat by COVID, so that's my report.
Okay, we don't have a lot of service rewards this year. Looking at, that's what was on your report, service.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like many as we used to have. Got a lot of younger teachers. Okay.
Yeah, we do have the service pins, and we're going to be handing those out. So, or I should say, sending those out.
Okay. All right. And 14, assistant superintendent, well, and he's asleep, I'm sure, by now.
Mr. Moore, you're still with us, aren't you?
What was that?
Assistant superintendent report.
Yeah. I was waiting on the attendance report.
They're all here.
Okay, we'll move on to the chief financial officer report.
Athletic director,
Not there.
did everyone get the report from what we're doing with Coach Gray and the football team on the virtual meetings in their package?
Would you go ahead and explain that if you would, Hollis?
Ultimately, what's taking place is they have position meetings Monday through Thursday. So one day is offensive line, one day is defensive line, and so on and so forth. They're averaging around 60 kids per week, and it's different every day based on the position, 10 to 15 to 20 kids. But they've seen it grow from the very first day. Last time I talked to Coach Gray, they had around 135, 140 football player athletes that were signed up for the class, and then depending on the position meeting for the day, those kids joined. So it's very exciting to see that, even though there's not an athletic period or workouts and those things, they're still getting some very positive things returned as far as from the virtual classroom.
It's good.
Anybody have any questions on the financial report? Check register? Okay. And we just had the athletic report. The other reports, are any questions on those? All right. Well,
Real
Oh.
quick, child nutrition.
hmm,
So we're still doing weekly feeding? And are we, I thought I had read something about doing weekly feeding into June.
June 30th. We are.
Perfect. Okay.
Ma'am.
Sorry.
and, anything to add yours?
I don't know if y'all know that we got the TEA grant that we applied for in January, so that'll be for some fencing and some card access around the buildings. So a little over 35,000. So we're gonna start working on that probably next week, trying to make sure with our vendors that we're good on their quotes and stuff.
That was it was $36,000 grant. you're talking?
35,646 or something like that.
Wow.
And one of the more significant stretches of fence there would seal off the north side of the bleachers at the football stadium. At this point, you can pretty much migrate across that field and walk into the.
Or come down from the stands and go around the back in the dark.
Right.
Okay. There's no more questions or comments on the reports. We'll move to item 15, board request for additional items. Anybody got any reports?
Next meeting. What is it?
That's coming up here in a sec, but I have a request. Take this questionnaire home with you. Put it on your front door, inside of your front door, and on your way out to the next board meeting, if you have any of these, stay home.
And please note that questionnaire or something like that will be handed out at the graduation ceremony upon entry. And also, don't forget that this Friday night, that's our senior parade. So, senior class parade.
Which night is that?
It is Friday night,
What time does it start?
5:30.
About there.
One more question. I see that there's a special called meeting Tuesday, May 26th.
Yes.
We had set that up just in case we needed to for a calendar.
Gotcha.
And that's when, we were thinking we had to get this thing. I think we can scratch that for now.
So our next meeting will be,
Regular meeting would be the next meeting in
Monday, June
in June.
15th.
Yes, sir. I believe it's the 18th.
15th,
1-5?
June 15th.
15th.
Oh, yeah,
It's
what
within
about,
3 days.
the summer leadership? We're doing it
It
virtual?
it will be done virtually, if we choose to sign up for that. Registration for that won't begin until June 1st, so we don't know yet what the exact cost of that will be. I don't know how much benefit that it will necessarily be to you. We do have the added Region 11 piece that we put into the contract for the coming year. Everybody's hours are good for the year, so you might consider as a group some alternatives to that.
is this the San Antonio thing we're talking about?
Yes, San Antonio has been canceled, and Fort Worth.
So the SLI would be online, and should we choose to do it. Now the hours, if I'm not mistaken, the hours, we've already got the hours in. We're good on hours. Because of all of this, our hours are rolling toward November. So that's our end date. We're good on hours, and again, this is all going to be online. So if we decide not to do SLI online, that's, I think we need to, be upfront about, what benefit is there going to be to do this. Doing classes online is not the same as doing them in person, and especially these trainings. It's not to say there wouldn't be a value, but it's
A lot of these classes are hard enough to sit at, besides sit in front of, if you know what I mean.
well, you guys have, like I said, you've got your hours in. I think did we get the situation with the legislative update figured out, Liz?
Yes, and I was going to mention that is the legislative update is the only one that TASB still has not corrected on your files, although we believe that you've had it. But should we have to redo that just to satisfy putting it on, it's already on TASB's website. We can do it for free on ESC 11. I did it online not for credit, but I can go in and take those classes too, and it really only took me not quite an hour to do it. So, TASB has told me they will correct your files, but I haven't seen those corrections yet.
Is this the one we're talking about that was due like
The House
in the May
bill.
or something like that?
This is the House bill that
Yeah.
they attended, and I guess you did too, in San Antonio last summer,
Mm-hmm.
but for whatever reason, it did not get put on your transcripts. Even Mr. Hoppers didn't get put on his transcript. So it's the only thing missing, and so I've contacted TASB right before the shutdown. They said, oh yes, we're gonna get that corrected. It hasn't been corrected yet. I've worked with Dale Latham on it, and so should they come back and say, well, we can't figure out that you were there, we can't prove it, then Dale will work some magic with us and we'll make sure that you get that.
I remember.
But that's the only thing that's off.
I remember who was the instructor, who was that guy that comes out here that talks to us, or led a class for us one day.
Dale?
Not Dale, another young guy.
You're talking about the guy from TASB out there.
Mhm. He's the one that did that class.
And I should remember his name too.
I see his face.
You're
Short guy, no?
Everybody's short to chat.
The odd thing with that too is every other course, I can go in and request that by line item and tell them what day, where you were, and I can put those in, and then they just confirm it. It's the one course that I can't get to. So that's the only thing that you don't have on paper, but we know you did it, so.
What I don't want to do is lose momentum on our Lone Star governance. I suppose we should put you here in a bit. But I don't want to lose momentum on Lone Star. Lone Star governance, though, has really been basically suspended until, I believe, September.
That's correct.
That was gonna be my question, when we were gonna start that back up. So,
Right. Officially, now, I don't think we stop what we're doing. Now, obviously, we don't have student data to go over, most recent data anyway. But we don't stop matriculating on what we're doing. And I know we've mentioned this before, but our district, and we didn't realize it at the time, and I didn't realize it, but our district has made a bigger jump, improvement from the beginning of Lone Star Governance to our first review than any district heretofore in Lone Star Governance in the state of Texas. I didn't know if you guys realize that, but that's pretty huge. So we've got a commendation coming from TEA for that, and that's big stuff. That's highly commendable. So yeah, absolutely, so we're, you guys have done, and I know you feel it too. I mean, we've done quite a bit in Lone Star Governance, but we don't want to lose that momentum. So there's going to be some things we're going to be reviewing board operating procedures soon. And we also want to start in July. We want to start taking a look at some of the other measures in Lone Star Governance that again, we don't need them to start their programming for us to continue. We'll continue on that so that we hit the ground running and we don't have this lag in between. So it is the toughest training for a board in the state of Texas, and we're hitting it, and we're doing a great job. You guys are knocking it out of the park. So anyway, that will restart in September. In the meantime, we have a meeting next week, I believe, Hollis and